Listen, I need to tell you something important. Right at this very moment, while you're reading these words, there's probably a whole symphony of thoughts playing in your head. Maybe you're worried about that meeting tomorrow, or replaying something awkward you said last week. Perhaps you're thinking about dinner, or that text message you haven't answered, or whether you remembered to lock the front door. Here's what I want you to understand. This constant mental chatter isn't just normal background noise. It's not just how things are. And honestly, it's stealing your life from you, one distracted moment at a time. Most people live their entire existence with a mind that never truly settles, never genuinely rests, never experiences real clarity. They've become so used to the chaos upstairs that they think it's simply part of being human. But I'm here to tell you something revolutionary. The people who seem to have it all together, who make brilliant decisions under pressure, who maintain deep relationships and accomplish extraordinary things, they've discovered something profound. They've learned to cultivate what I call inner stillness, not emptiness, not suppression, but a focused, intentional, crystal clear kind of awareness, a mind that engages when it needs to engage and releases when it needs to rest, a consciousness that operates from centered confidence rather than frantic reactivity. This isn't some mystical mumbo-jumbo. This is hard science. This is neurobiology. This is the fundamental difference between living with purpose versus being tossed around like a leaf in the wind by every passing thought, feeling, and distraction. By the time we finish this journey together, you're going to understand exactly how to shift your mental state from chaos to clarity, from anxiety to authentic achievement, from scattered to strategic. The research is absolutely clear on this. People with calm, focused minds make wiser choices, build stronger connections, reach more meaningful goals, and report significantly deeper levels of genuine happiness. They don't collapse under stress. They don't burn themselves out. They don't waste precious mental energy worrying about things beyond their control. Instead, they channel their psychological resources toward what genuinely matters, and they do it with a quiet intensity that produces remarkable results. But here's where most people get it completely wrong. They think developing inner stillness means forcing yourself to stop thinking or pretending everything's fine when it isn't. That's like trying to stop ocean waves by shouting at them. It creates more tension, not less. The real secret? Learning to witness your thoughts without being hijacked by them, to experience your emotions without drowning in them, to respond to life from a place of conscious choice rather than automatic reaction. Chapter 1. The Invisible Cage. Most people live in. Let me paint you a picture. Most people are living in what I call the thought storm cage. And the really tragic part? They don't even realize they're trapped. They've become so accustomed to the relentless mental commentary, the endless worrying, the constant psychological turbulence, that they genuinely believe this is just what it means to be alive. But it's not. It's learned behavior. And anything learned can be unlearned. Here's what the thought storm looks like in real life. Your alarm goes off. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already sprinting. What's on my agenda today? Oh God, did I reply to Sarah's email? Why did I eat that entire pizza last night? What if the presentation goes badly? I really need to call Mom. When was the last time I went to the gym? You grab your phone, and suddenly you're consuming information that has absolutely nothing to do with your actual goals or well-being. Headlines designed to trigger anxiety, social media posts that make you compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, notifications fragmenting your attention before you've even brushed your teeth. Throughout your day, your mind jumps around like a pinball machine. You're in a conversation with your partner, but half your attention is on tomorrow's deadline. You're working on an important project, but you keep getting yanked away by emails, messages, and random tangents your brain decides to explore. You're having dinner with people you love, but you're not really there because your consciousness is scattered across 17 different concerns. This isn't just uncomfortable, it's sabotaging your potential. When your mind is perpetually fragmented, you can't engage in deep thinking. When you can't think deeply, you can't solve nuanced problems. When you can't solve complex challenges, you can't create breakthrough results. You end up living reactively, responding to whatever screams loudest for attention rather than proactively pursuing what genuinely matters. The thought storm cage has three main bars that keep people imprisoned. First is mental restlessness addiction. Your brain has become hooked on constant stimulation. Just like someone who needs their next caffeine fix, your mind craves the next thought, the next worry, the next piece of information. This creates a vicious cycle where quietness feels threatening, where boredom feels unbearable, and you constantly seek external input to quiet the internal hurricane. Second is emotional amplification. When your mind is noisy, your emotions become distorted and exaggerated. A small setback transforms into a catastrophe. A minor disagreement feels like a fundamental rejection. Ordinary stress feels completely overwhelming. You're no longer responding to what's actually happening. You're responding to your distorted interpretation of what's happening, filtered through all that mental static. Third is focus fragmentation. I'm not talking about a clinical condition here. I'm talking about the modern epidemic of scattered attention. You've trained your brain to constantly switch between tasks, thoughts, and stimuli. This makes sustained concentration nearly impossible. You sit down to do meaningful work, and within moments, your attention is pulled in 12 different directions. You start reading something worthwhile, but you can't stay with it for more than a paragraph. You try to have a real conversation, but you keep glancing at your phone. Here's the heartbreaking truth. Most people spend their entire lives in this cage without ever realizing there's a key. They accept the chaos as inevitable. They think anxiety is just the price of modern living. They assume that inner peace is only for monks or people with nothing important going on. But they're completely wrong. The most successful, fulfilled people in the world have learned to escape this cage. They've developed what researchers call cognitive sovereignty. They can direct their attention wherever they choose. They can think about what they decide to think about. They can stay centered under pressure because their minds aren't constantly generating stress and turbulence. This isn't a superpower you're born with. It's a skill you can develop through proper understanding and practice. Chapter 2. Why Your Brain Fights Against Peace. Your brain wasn't designed for the world you're living in. It was designed for survival in an environment that no longer exists. And this fundamental mismatch is the root cause of most of your mental suffering. Understanding this isn't just intellectually interesting. It's absolutely essential for developing inner stillness. Because when you understand why your brain generates so much noise, you can start working with it instead of against it. Let's talk about something neuroscientists discovered called the wandering network. When you're not actively focused on something specific, your brain doesn't just rest quietly. Instead, it switches into this mode where it starts generating thoughts about the past, worries about the future, and scenarios that might never happen. This network consumes about 20% of your total energy, even when you think you're just relaxing. This evolved as a survival mechanism. Our ancestors needed to constantly scan for threats, plan for challenges, and learn from past experiences. The person who was always thinking, always planning, always a little bit worried about what could go wrong was more likely to survive and pass on their genes. But in today's world, this constant mental activity isn't just unnecessary. It's actively harmful. Here's what's happening in your brain during the thought storm. Your amygdala, which is basically your brain's alarm system, is constantly scanning for threats. But here's the problem. In our modern world, most threats aren't physical. They're psychological. A challenging email triggers the same stress response as encountering a dangerous animal. A social media post that makes you feel inadequate activates the same fear circuits as a genuine predator. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between real danger and perceived danger. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, complex thinking, and emotional balance, gets overwhelmed. When you're constantly in threat detection mode, your prefrontal cortex can't do its job effectively. This is why you feel scattered, why you can't think clearly, why you make poor decisions when you're stressed. But here's the beautiful part. Neuroscience has proven beyond any doubt that you can literally reshape your brain. This concept is called neuroplasticity, and it means your brain is constantly changing based on how you use it. Every single time you practice directing your attention, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with focus. Every time you choose calm over anxiety, you reinforce the circuits that support emotional balance. Every time you observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them, you develop metacognitive awareness. Research on contemplative practices has shown remarkable results. People who practice these techniques for just 8 weeks show measurable changes in brain structure. The areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness literally become thicker and more active. The areas associated with stress, anxiety, and rumination become less reactive. Think of your mind like a jar of muddy water. When it's being constantly shaken, everything is murky and you can't see anything clearly. But when you stop shaking it, when you allow it to settle naturally, the mud sinks to the bottom and everything becomes transparent. You're not making the mud disappear. You're just stopping the agitation. The neurological process involves strengthening 3 key systems. Your attention system, which allows you to focus on what you consciously choose. Your awareness system, which allows you to observe your thoughts and emotions without being overwhelmed. And your response system, which allows you to choose how you respond to situations. When these 3 systems work together in harmony, you experience what psychologists call optimal consciousness. Time seems to expand or contract. You're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Distractions fade into the background. You perform at your highest level. Chapter 3. The 5 Pillars that Transform Your Inner Landscape. Positive psychology isn't about plastering a fake smile on your face or pretending everything's wonderful when it isn't. It's the scientific study of what makes life genuinely worth living. and it has identified specific practices and perspectives that lead to authentic well-being, resilience, and peak performance. The first pillar is appreciation. True appreciation is a cognitive discipline that literally rewires your brain for positivity. When you regularly practice genuine appreciation, you train your attention to notice what's working instead of constantly fixating on what's wrong. Neuroscientist Dr. Maria Hernandez found that appreciation activates the brain's reward pathways, releasing dopamine and serotonin. But more importantly, it strengthens neural pathways associated with optimism and resilience. People who practice daily appreciation experience lower stress hormones, better sleep, stronger immune systems, and improved relationships. The second pillar is purpose and significance. People who have a clear sense of why they're alive and what they're working toward experience significantly higher levels of life satisfaction, even when facing difficult circumstances. When your mind is still, you can connect with your deeper values and purposes. The mental noise of daily life often drowns out the quiet voice of your authentic self. But when you develop mental clarity, you can hear what really matters to you. The third pillar is adaptive mindset. People with an adaptive mindset believe that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. They see challenges as opportunities, failures as feedback, and obstacles as training. With inner stillness, you can observe your thoughts about challenges without being overwhelmed. You can feel the discomfort of growth without running away. You can receive feedback without taking it personally. The fourth pillar is connection and belonging. Humans are fundamentally social beings, and the quality of our relationships is one of the strongest predictors of life satisfaction. But building deep, meaningful connections requires presence, empathy, and emotional balance. When your mind is constantly racing, you can't be fully present with other people. Inner stillness allows you to be genuinely present, which is one of the greatest gifts you can give another person. The fifth pillar is resilience. Resilience isn't about being tough or suppressing emotions. It's about developing a stable inner core that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. Inner stillness is the foundation of true resilience. When you're not overwhelmed by mental noise, you can think clearly. During crisis, you can access your problem-solving abilities when you need them most. These 5 pillars work synergistically. Appreciation enhances your sense of purpose. An adaptive mindset strengthens your resilience. Strong connections provide support for continued growth. Chapter 4. The 4 traps that keep you stuck. Even when people understand the importance of developing inner stillness, most fail because they fall into predictable traps. Trap 1 is stimulation dependency. Your brain has become dependent on constant mental stimulation. When you first try to quiet your mind, you'll feel restless, maybe even panicky. This is not a sign that inner stillness isn't for you. It's a sign that you desperately need it. Breaking free requires gradual adaptation. Start with just 5 minutes of intentional quiet time. No phone, no music, no distractions. Gradually increase this time. What you're doing is retraining your brain to be comfortable with its own company. Trap 2 is perfectionist paralysis. Many people believe they need perfect conditions to develop inner stillness. They're waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The truth is, you can develop inner stillness anywhere, anytime. Practice while waiting in line, during your commute, before important meetings. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Create them internally. Trap. 3 is the emotional emergence trap. When your mind starts to quiet down, suppressed emotions often surface. This is completely normal and healthy. Mental noise often serves as a distraction from uncomfortable emotions. When you stop the constant mental chatter, you create space for feelings that have been pushed down. Welcome these emotions without drowning in them. This emotional processing is temporary, and on the other side is genuine peace. Trap 4 is the instant results expectation. People try it for a few days, and when they don't see dramatic results, they conclude it doesn't work. Developing inner stillness is like building muscle. The changes happen gradually. Your stress levels decrease, your focus improves, your relationships deepen. The secret is to focus on the process, not the outcome. Commit to the practice regardless of how you feel. Chapter 5. Building your daily architecture. Developing inner stillness isn't something you do occasionally, it's something you build into the architecture of your daily life. The foundation is what I call grounding moments. These are specific times throughout your day when you intentionally return to the present moment and reconnect with mental clarity. Your first grounding moment happens before you get out of bed. Spend 2 to 3 minutes connecting with your breath and setting an intention for the day. This isn't about positive affirmations. It's about starting your day from a place of choice rather than reaction. Your second grounding moment happens during your morning routine. Choose one routine activity and do it with complete presence. Feel the water on your skin. Taste your food. Notice the warmth of your cup. This trains your brain to find richness in ordinary moments. Throughout your workday, create micro-grounding moments. Before you check email, take 3 deep breaths. Before you enter a meeting, spend 30 seconds centering yourself. These moments accumulate throughout the day to create a foundation of mental stability. Your evening grounding moment determines the quality of your sleep. Instead of scrolling through your phone before bed, spend 10 to 15 minutes in quiet reflection. Review your day without judgment. Acknowledge what went well. Release any mental tension. The real architecture involves how you handle inevitable challenges. This is where most people's practice falls apart. They can be calm in perfect conditions, but as soon as stress hits, they revert to old patterns. The secret is developing conscious response. Instead of automatically reacting to stressful situations, you create a small gap between the trigger and your response. In that gap, you access your inner stillness and choose how you want to respond. Practice the pause practice. When you notice stress or reactive emotions arising, mentally say, pause. Take a conscious breath. Observe what's really happening. Proceed from a place of choice. Another crucial element is information curation. Most people consume information randomly throughout the day without considering the cumulative effect on their mental state. Be selective about what information you allow into your consciousness. The final element is integration activities. These are practices that help you process and integrate the experiences of your day. This might be journaling, walking in nature, creative expression, or meaningful conversation. People who successfully develop inner stillness don't rely on willpower. They create systems that make mental clarity the natural result of their daily habits. Chapter 6. Maintaining clarity when everything falls apart. Here's the thing. Anybody can maintain some level of calm when life is going smoothly. But the real test of inner stillness comes when everything seems to be falling apart. When you're facing a major crisis, dealing with heartbreak, experiencing financial pressure, or navigating health challenges. That's when your mental training either serves you or abandons you. The difference between people who thrive under pressure and those who crumble isn't talent or luck. It's their ability to access mental clarity when they need it most. Let me introduce you to what I call crisis conditioning. Just like vaccines expose you to small amounts of a virus to build immunity, crisis conditioning involves deliberately practicing mental clarity techniques in progressively challenging situations. Most people only practice when they feel calm and have plenty of time, which means their skills evaporate the moment real stress hits. Start by practicing your grounding moments during minor frustrations. When you're stuck at a red light that seems to last forever, instead of getting annoyed, use it as an opportunity to practice conscious response. When someone cuts in line at the coffee shop, instead of getting irritated, practice observing your emotional reaction without being controlled by it. When your internet connection drops during an important video call, instead of losing your composure, practice accessing calm in the middle of chaos. Gradually increase the intensity. Practice maintaining mental clarity during difficult conversations, high-stakes presentations, or emergency situations. The key is not to avoid stress, but to use it as training for your mental stability. Champions don't become champions by avoiding challenges. They become champions by performing well under pressure. The second advanced technique is perspective shifting under fire. When you're stressed, your brain naturally focuses on everything that could go wrong. This catastrophic thinking creates a downward spiral that makes difficult situations worse. Advanced practitioners learn to reframe situations in real time, not by denying reality, but by choosing more empowering perspectives. Instead of, "This is a disaster," try, "This is a test of my resilience." Instead of, "I can't handle this," try, "This is developing my capacity to handle anything." Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" try, "What is this teaching me?" This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. You're choosing thoughts that serve your ability to respond effectively rather than thoughts that paralyze you. The third technique is what neuroscientists call focus narrowing under load. When you're overwhelmed, your attention fragments. You start thinking about 10 things at once, none of them clearly. Advanced practitioners learn to narrow their focus to what's most important in the moment, while maintaining awareness of the bigger picture. This requires tactical attention management. In any stressful situation, ask yourself 3 questions. What's the most important thing right now? What can I actually control in this moment? What would my wisest self do? These questions cut through mental noise and direct your attention to productive action rather than unproductive worry. The fourth advanced technique is emotional transformation. Instead of trying to suppress difficult emotions during stressful times, you learn to transform their energy into fuel for peak performance. Anxiety can become focused intensity. Anger can become determined action. Fear can become careful preparation. Frustration can become creative problem solving. This transformation happens through what I call emotion surfing. Instead of fighting against difficult emotions or drowning in them, you learn to ride them like a surfer rides a wave. You feel the emotion fully, acknowledge its message, extract any useful information it contains, and then channel its energy toward constructive action. For example, when you feel anxiety about a deadline, instead of trying to calm down, use the energy of that anxiety to fuel intense focus and productivity. When you feel anger about an injustice, use that energy to take powerful action rather than just complaining. The fifth technique is systems thinking under pressure. When most people face complex challenges, they get overwhelmed by all the moving parts and variables. They try to solve everything at once, or they freeze because the problem seems too big. Advanced practitioners break complex situations into manageable components and address them systematically. This involves pressure compartmentalization. You mentally separate urgent from important, controllable from uncontrollable, and immediate from long-term. You handle each category differently. Urgent and important gets immediate attention. Important but not urgent gets scheduled. Urgent but not important gets delegated or eliminated. Neither urgent nor important gets ignored. The sixth technique is energy pulsing during crisis. Most people exhaust themselves during challenging periods by staying in constant high alert mode. They burn through their mental and emotional resources quickly, which makes them less effective when they need to be at their best. Advanced practitioners learn to pulse their energy, alternating between periods of intense focus and brief recovery. Even during the most demanding situations, they take micro breaks to restore their mental clarity. This might be 30 seconds of deep breathing between meetings, a 2-minute walk between tasks, or simply closing their eyes and centering themselves before important decisions. The seventh technique is clarity anchoring. This involves having a specific mental routine that you can use to instantly access your inner stillness regardless of external circumstances. It's like having a reset button for your consciousness that works anywhere, anytime. Your clarity anchor might be a specific breathing pattern, a meaningful phrase you repeat silently, a physical gesture that reminds you of your inner stability, or a brief visualization that connects you to your deepest sense of purpose. The key is practicing this anchor so consistently that it becomes an automatic response to stress rather than something you have to remember to do. People who master these advanced techniques don't just survive high-pressure situations. They thrive in them. They make their best decisions when stakes are highest. They stay creative when others panic. They inspire confidence when others lose hope. They turn obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into comebacks. Chapter 7, The Appreciation Revolution. Appreciation is the most powerful technique in positive psychology, but most people practice it wrong. They think appreciation means listing things they're thankful for or pretending everything is wonderful. Real appreciation is a sophisticated mental technology that literally rewires your brain's default settings from scarcity to abundance, from problems to possibilities, from what's missing to what's present. The neuroscience of appreciation is remarkable. When you practice genuine appreciation, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals that antidepressants try to increase. But unlike medication, appreciation creates lasting changes in brain structure. Regular appreciation practice increases gray matter in areas associated with learning, memory, and emotional regulation while decreasing activity in the brain's stress centers. Dr. Jennifer Torres, the world's leading appreciation researcher, found that people who practice daily appreciation experience 25% higher levels of happiness, improved sleep quality, stronger immune systems, and more satisfying relationships. They also exercise more, eat better, and make healthier life choices. Appreciation isn't just a nice feeling. It's a performance enhancer for every area of life. But here's where most people go wrong. They practice surface appreciation, simply listing obvious things like health, family, or shelter. While these are genuinely worth appreciating, surface appreciation doesn't create the profound neurological changes that transform your mental landscape. You need to practice what I call deep appreciation, which involves finding genuine gratitude for things that initially seem neutral or even negative. Deep appreciation starts with appreciating the ordinary moments that you usually take for granted. The fact that you can read these words means your visual system is performing millions of complex calculations every second. The fact that you can understand language means your brain is accessing a sophisticated database of meaning and memory. The fact that you woke up this morning means billions of cellular processes worked perfectly while you slept. When you start noticing the miraculous nature of ordinary experiences, your baseline level of appreciation rises. You stop taking life for granted and start recognizing that even your most routine day contains countless gifts that most people throughout history could only dream of. Advanced appreciation practice involves finding gratitude for your challenges and difficulties. This isn't about pretending that problems are good or that suffering is pleasant. It's about recognizing that difficulties develop your character, build your resilience, and teach you lessons you couldn't learn any other way. Every obstacle you've overcome has made you stronger. Every failure has taught you something valuable. Every difficult person has shown you something about yourself. Every setback has redirected you toward something better. This doesn't mean you should seek out suffering, but it means you can extract value and meaning from whatever challenges life presents. The most powerful form of appreciation is what I call future appreciation. This involves feeling genuine gratitude for positive outcomes before they happen. Instead of waiting for good things to occur before feeling grateful, you cultivate appreciation for opportunities, possibilities, and potential futures. For example, instead of just being grateful after you achieve a goal, practice appreciation for the opportunity to pursue meaningful goals. Instead of just appreciating good health after you recover from illness, practice gratitude for your body's incredible capacity to heal itself. Instead of just feeling thankful for supportive relationships when others help you, practice appreciation for the human capacity for love and connection. Future appreciation isn't wishful thinking. It's recognizing that life is constantly offering you opportunities for growth, learning, and contribution. When you appreciate these opportunities before they fully manifest, you become more likely to recognize them when they appear and more motivated to act on them effectively. Another advanced technique is contrast appreciation. This involves deliberately looking for aspects of difficult situations that you can genuinely appreciate. When you're stuck in slow-moving traffic, appreciate the opportunity to listen to educational content or practice patience. When you're dealing with difficult people, appreciate the opportunity to develop emotional regulation and social skills. When you're facing financial challenges, appreciate the motivation to become more resourceful and creative. This isn't about being thankful for problems. It's about being resourceful enough to find value in whatever circumstances you encounter. The daily architecture of appreciation involves specific practices that compound over time to create lasting changes in your mental landscape. Start each morning by identifying 3 specific things you appreciate about the coming day. These shouldn't be generic statements, but detailed observations about particular opportunities, experiences, or possibilities. Practice moment-to-moment appreciation by noticing small pleasures and conveniences you usually overlook. The taste of clean water, the warmth of sunlight, the efficiency of technology, the kindness of strangers, the beauty of nature, the comfort of shelter. These micro appreciations train your brain to notice abundance rather than scarcity. End each day by reviewing what went well and extracting lessons from what didn't. Find something valuable in both your successes and your setbacks. Appreciate your growth, your learning, your relationships, and your progress toward meaningful goals. This evening appreciation practice primes your subconscious mind to process experiences positively while you sleep. The ultimate goal of appreciation practice isn't to feel good all the time. It's to develop what researchers call an appreciative orientation. This means your default mental setting becomes noticing what's working, what's possible, and what's valuable rather than fixating on what's wrong, what's missing, or what's threatening. When combined with inner stillness, appreciation becomes exponentially more powerful. Mental noise makes it hard to appreciate anything because you're too distracted by worry and rumination. But when your mind is clear and present, you can fully experience the depth and richness of life that appreciation reveals. You don't just think grateful thoughts. You embody a grateful way of being. Chapter 8. Optimal Consciousness and Peak Performance. Optimal consciousness is the ultimate expression of inner stillness in action. It's the experience of being completely absorbed in an activity where time seems to disappear, self-consciousness fades, and you perform at your absolute best. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists call it inspiration. Entrepreneurs call it being on fire. Scientists call it flow state. Whatever you call it, optimal consciousness represents the perfect marriage between mental clarity and peak performance. Psychologist Dr. Marcus Chen identified optimal consciousness through decades of research with high performers across every field imaginable. He found that these experiences share common characteristics: complete concentration on the task at hand, clear goals and immediate feedback, balance between challenge and skill level, merger of action and awareness, loss of self-consciousness, transformation of time, and intrinsic motivation. But here's what most people don't understand about optimal consciousness. It's not a random occurrence that happens to lucky people. It's a learnable skill that emerges from specific conditions you can deliberately create. When you combine inner stillness with positive psychology principles, you create the ideal conditions for optimal consciousness to arise consistently rather than occasionally. The first trigger is what researchers call the challenge skill sweet spot. Optimal consciousness occurs when you're engaged in activities that are challenging enough to demand your full attention, but not so difficult that they create anxiety. Most people spend their lives in activities that are either too easy, which creates boredom, or too difficult, which creates stress. Optimal consciousness exists in the sweet spot between these extremes. Inner stillness allows you to accurately assess both the challenge level of situations and your current skill level. Mental noise distorts perception, making easy things seem harder and hard things seem impossible. When your mind is clear, you can find the challenge-skill balance more easily and adjust your approach to maintain optimal conditions. The second trigger is clear goals, and immediate feedback. Your brain needs to know what it's trying to achieve and whether it's succeeding. Vague goals create confusion, which breaks flow. Delayed feedback creates uncertainty, which also disrupts optimal consciousness. The most flow-inducing activities provide continuous information about your performance. Positive psychology enhances this trigger through what researchers call authentic goal setting. Instead of pursuing goals imposed by others or driven by external rewards, you focus on objectives that align with your deepest values and interests. When your goals are intrinsically meaningful, your brain releases more dopamine, which enhances focus and motivation. The third trigger is complete concentration on the present moment. Optimal consciousness only occurs when you're fully absorbed in what's happening right now rather than thinking about past or future. This is where inner stillness training becomes essential. Most people can't sustain focused attention for more than a few minutes before their mind wanders to other concerns. Advanced practitioners develop selective attention mastery. They can choose what to focus on and maintain that focus despite distractions. This isn't about forcing concentration through willpower. It's about training attention like you would train any other skill. The fourth trigger is the loss of self-consciousness. In optimal consciousness, you stop monitoring how you look, what others think, or whether you're performing perfectly. The inner critic goes quiet, and you become completely absorbed in the activity itself. This is one of the most liberating aspects of flow, and why people become addicted to these experiences. Inner stillness naturally reduces self-consciousness because you're not constantly generating thoughts about yourself and your performance. When mental noise decreases, self-awareness paradoxically increases, but it becomes objective rather than judgmental. You notice what's happening without creating stories about what it means. The fifth trigger is intrinsic motivation. Optimal consciousness occurs most easily when you're engaged in activities you find inherently rewarding rather than activities you're doing for external rewards. This is where positive psychology principles become crucial. When you understand your core values, strengths, and interests, you can design your life around activities that naturally generate flow. People who experience optimal consciousness regularly don't just stumble into it. They engineer their environment and activities to maximize flow conditions. They seek out challenges that match their skill level, create clear goals with immediate feedback, eliminate unnecessary distractions, and focus on intrinsically meaningful work. The relationship between optimal consciousness and performance is profound. In flow state, your brain operates differently than normal. The prefrontal cortex, which usually creates self-doubt and overthinking, partially deactivates. Meanwhile, areas associated with pattern recognition, creativity, and skill execution become hyperactive. You literally think faster, see more clearly, and perform better than your normal state. But optimal consciousness isn't just about peak performance in specific activities. It's about living with greater engagement and satisfaction. People who experience flow regularly report higher levels of life satisfaction, better relationships, improved health, and stronger sense of meaning and purpose. Flow is simultaneously a performance state and a well-being state. The practical application involves redesigning your daily activities to include more flow opportunities. This might mean seeking more challenging projects at work, learning new skills that stretch your abilities, engaging in creative pursuits that absorb your attention, or participating in physical activities that require complete focus. You can also create microflow experiences throughout your day. Any activity can become flow-inducing if you approach it with the right mindset. Washing dishes becomes meditative when you focus completely on the sensory experience. Walking becomes transcendent when you pay full attention to the rhythm and movement. Even routine work tasks can generate flow when you set clear goals, seek immediate feedback, and maintain complete concentration. The integration of inner stillness and positive psychology creates what I call sustained flow capacity. Instead of occasional peak experiences, you develop the ability to access flow-like states regularly. Your baseline level of engagement rises. You become more present, more focused, more creative, and more effective in everything you do. Chapter 9. Navigating Setbacks with Grace. The path to developing inner stillness isn't linear, and expecting it to be sets you up for unnecessary frustration and potential abandonment of the practice. Everyone who has developed genuine mental mastery has faced periods of doubt, regression, and apparent failure. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up isn't that successful people don't experience setbacks. It's that they understand setbacks are part of the process and know how to navigate them skillfully. The first type of setback is what I call the honeymoon collapse. When people first start practicing inner stillness techniques, they often experience rapid initial improvement. Their stress decreases. Their focus improves. Their relationships get better. This early success creates optimism and motivation. But then, usually after a few weeks or months, they hit a plateau or even seem to regress. This collapse isn't a sign that the practice isn't working. It's actually evidence that it is working. Your brain is rewiring itself, which means old patterns are being disrupted before new patterns are fully established. It's like renovating a house. Things get messier before they get better. During this phase, you might feel more anxious, more scattered, or more emotionally reactive than before you started practicing. The key to navigating the honeymoon collapse is understanding that it's temporary and necessary. Your nervous system is releasing stored stress and trauma. Suppressed emotions are surfacing to be processed and integrated. Your brain is forming new neural pathways while old ones are weakening. This process can feel uncomfortable, but it's a sign of healing and growth. The second type of setback is triggered regression. Major life stresses like job loss, relationship problems, health challenges, or family crisis can temporarily override your mental training. During these periods, you might find yourself reverting to old patterns of anxiety, overwhelm, or reactive behavior despite months or years of practice. This doesn't mean you've lost your progress or that your training was worthless. It means you're human, and even well-trained minds can be temporarily overwhelmed by extreme circumstances. The difference is that your recovery time is much faster. Where you might have been stuck in reactive patterns for weeks before, you now recover your equilibrium in days or hours. The third type of setback is motivation fade. After practicing for an extended period, some people lose enthusiasm for their mental training. The practices that once felt meaningful start feeling routine or boring. The benefits that once seemed remarkable start feeling normal. This is similar to what happens in long-term relationships or careers. Familiarity can breed complacency. Motivation fade is often a sign that you need to evolve your practice rather than abandon it. This might mean exploring new techniques, setting more challenging goals, or finding ways to deepen your understanding. Advanced practitioners regularly refresh their practice to maintain engagement and continue growing. The fourth type of setback is social friction. As you develop greater mental clarity and emotional stability, you might find that some people in your life react negatively to your changes. They might criticize your practices, question your new boundaries, or pressure you to return to old patterns. This social resistance can create doubt and make you wonder if you're on the right path. Understanding that social friction is normal helps you navigate it without abandoning your growth. When you change, it affects the dynamics of all your relationships. Some people will support your evolution, others will feel threatened by it. Your job isn't to convince everyone else to change. It's to continue your own development while maintaining compassion for those who aren't ready for their own growth. The psychology of resilience involves developing what researchers call anti-fragility. This describes systems that don't just survive stress, but actually grow stronger because of it. Anti-fragile people don't just bounce back from setbacks. They use setbacks as fuel for greater strength, wisdom, and capability. Building anti-fragility requires reframing your relationship with difficulty. Instead of seeing setbacks as evidence that you're failing, you learn to see them as information about where you need to grow. Instead of trying to avoid all challenges, you develop confidence in your ability to handle whatever life presents. Instead of seeing struggle as abnormal, you recognize it as the price of growth and transformation. The practical approach to setback navigation involves what I call the RISE protocol. Recognize what's happening without judgment or self-criticism. Setbacks are normal and temporary. Investigate the underlying causes without getting lost in analysis. What triggered this setback? What can you learn from it? Strategize your response based on your investigation. What adjustments do you need to make? What support do you need? Execute your strategy with patience and self-compassion. Another crucial element of resilience is maintaining perspective during difficult periods. Setbacks feel permanent when you're in the middle of them, but they're actually temporary disruptions in a longer trajectory of growth. Keeping a practice journal helps you see patterns and progress that aren't obvious day to day. When you can look back and see how far you've come, temporary setbacks become less threatening. Self-compassion is perhaps the most important element of resilience. Most people respond to setbacks with self-criticism, which only makes the situation worse. Advanced practitioners learn to treat themselves with the same kindness they would offer a good friend facing similar challenges. They acknowledge their suffering without dramatizing it. They recognize their common humanity rather than feeling uniquely flawed. They speak to themselves with encouragement rather than criticism. The ultimate goal isn't to avoid all setbacks, but to develop the skills and mindset that allow you to navigate them gracefully and extract maximum learning from each experience. Every setback becomes an opportunity to deepen your practice, strengthen your resilience, and prove to yourself that you can handle whatever life presents. To 10. Building lifelong mastery. Developing inner stillness isn't a destination you reach and then maintain effortlessly. It's a lifelong journey of continuous growth, deepening awareness, and expanding capacity. The people who achieve true mental mastery understand that this is a practice they'll engage with for the rest of their lives, not a problem they solve once and forget about. The transition from beginner to advanced practitioner involves several key shifts in perspective. Initially, Most people practice inner stillness techniques to solve specific problems. They want less anxiety, better focus, improved relationships, or greater success. These are valid motivations, but they represent what I call problem-focused practice. Advanced practitioners transition to growth-focused practice. They're not just trying to fix what's wrong. They're committed to developing their full human potential. They practice not because they have to, but because they want to see how far they can evolve. They're curious about the depths of peace, clarity, and wisdom they can access. This shift from problem-focused to growth-focused practice changes everything. Instead of practicing only when you feel stressed, you practice consistently because you're committed to continuous growth. The second major transition is from self-focused to others-focused practice. Initially, inner stillness development is naturally centered on your own experience. You're learning to manage your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and improve your performance. But as you mature in practice, your motivation expands to include serving others. You realize that your mental clarity isn't just for your benefit. It's for everyone who interacts with you. When you're centered and peaceful, you create a calming influence on others. When you're clear and focused, you make better decisions that benefit your family, your work, and your community. When you're emotionally balanced, you can be more present and supportive for the people in your life. This shift toward service creates what researchers call eudaimonic motivation, the drive to contribute to something greater than yourself. This type of motivation is more sustainable and fulfilling than motivation focused only on personal pleasure and comfort. The third transition is from technique-focused to principle-focused practice. Beginners need specific techniques and structured practices to develop basic skills. They need meditation instructions, breathing exercises, appreciation protocols, and step-by-step systems. Advanced practitioners internalize the principles behind the techniques and apply them fluidly in real-time situations. They don't need to sit in formal meditation to access inner stillness. They don't need structured appreciation, practices to deeply appreciate life. They don't need specific breathing exercises to remain calm under pressure. The principles become integrated into their way of being. Building long-term mastery requires what I call practice evolution. Your mental training must continuously evolve to match your growing capacities and changing life circumstances. What works for a beginner may not be challenging enough for someone with years of experience. What's appropriate for someone in their 20s may not be relevant for someone in their 60s. Advanced practice often involves seeking greater challenges and more subtle levels of development. This might mean practicing in more difficult conditions, working with more challenging emotions, or developing more refined capacities like intuitive decision-making or empathic attunement. The concept of legacy becomes important in advanced practice. What kind of mental and emotional environment are you creating for the people around you? What are you modeling for your children, your colleagues, your friends? How are you contributing to the collective mental health of your community? People with developed inner stillness often become what I call peaceful anchors. They don't necessarily hold formal leadership positions, but they influence others through their presence, wisdom, and example. They demonstrate that it's possible to remain calm in chaos, kind in conflict, and clear in confusion. The ripple effects of one person's mental mastery extend far beyond their individual life. A parent who has developed emotional regulation raises children who are more secure and resilient. A manager who has cultivated mental clarity makes decisions that benefit everyone they oversee. A teacher who embodies inner peace creates learning environments where students can flourish. Creating a personal practice architecture for long-term development involves several components. Your core practices are the foundational techniques you maintain regardless of external circumstances. These might include daily meditation, regular reflection, or consistent appreciation practice. Your challenge practices are techniques you use to continue growing and stretching your capacities. These might involve practicing in difficult conditions, working with advanced teachers, or exploring new dimensions of consciousness. Your integration practices are ways you apply your mental training to real-world situations and relationships. This might include bringing mindfulness to work projects, applying emotional regulation skills in family dynamics, or using inner stillness principles in creative endeavors. Your service practices are ways you share your development with others and contribute to collective well-being. This might involve mentoring others, supporting community initiatives, or simply being a consistent source of peace and stability in your circles. The ultimate goal of long-term mental mastery isn't personal perfection, but authentic contribution. You develop inner stillness not to escape the world, but to engage with it more skillfully. You cultivate peace not to avoid conflict, but to navigate it more wisely. You build mental clarity not to judge others, but to serve them more effectively. When inner stillness development is pursued with this broader perspective, it becomes one of the most meaningful and fulfilling paths a person can follow. You're not just improving your own life. You're contributing to the evolution of human consciousness and the creation of a more peaceful, wise, and compassionate world. Chapter 11. Emotional Intelligence and Transforming Feelings into Power. Most people live at the mercy of their emotions. They feel anxious, so they avoid challenges. They feel angry, so they lash out at others. They feel sad, so they withdraw from life. They feel excited, so they make impulsive decisions. This emotional reactivity isn't a character flaw. It's a lack of training. Just like you can train your body to be stronger and more resilient, you can train your emotional system to be more intelligent and responsive. Emotional mastery isn't about suppressing feelings or pretending you don't have emotions. It's about developing a sophisticated relationship with your emotional life where you can feel everything fully while being controlled by nothing. This is one of the most powerful applications of inner stillness, because when your thoughts are clear, you can observe your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. The first principle of emotional mastery is understanding that emotions are information, not commands. Every emotion you experience is your nervous system's way of communicating important data about your environment, your needs, your values, and your goals. Anger tells you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear alerts you to potential threats. Sadness signals that something you value has been lost. Joy indicates that your needs are being met. Most people miss this crucial information because they're too busy reacting to the emotion or trying to make it go away. They treat emotions like problems to solve rather than messages to decode. When you develop inner stillness, you create the mental space necessary to receive these messages clearly and respond to them wisely. The second principle is emotional granularity, which is your ability to distinguish between different emotional states with precision. Most people have a limited emotional vocabulary. They use words like good or bad, happy or sad, stressed or fine. This emotional vagueness makes it impossible to respond appropriately to what you're actually feeling. Advanced emotional mastery involves developing high emotional granularity. Instead of just feeling bad, you can distinguish between frustrated, disappointed, anxious, overwhelmed, sad, angry, or confused. Each of these emotions requires a different response and provides different information. When you can name emotions precisely, you can address them specifically. The third principle is the emotion-action gap. Between feeling an emotion and taking action, there's a small space where choice exists. Most people collapse this gap, moving directly from feeling to action without conscious intervention. They feel angry and immediately send a harsh message. They feel anxious and immediately start avoiding the situation. They feel excited and immediately make impulsive commitments. Emotional mastery involves expanding this gap so you have time to choose your response. This doesn't mean suppressing the emotion or pretending you don't feel it. It means feeling the emotion fully while maintaining enough awareness to choose how you want to respond. This is where inner stillness becomes essential because mental noise makes it impossible to access this space of choice. The fourth principle is emotional alchemy, the ability to transform emotional energy into constructive action. Every emotion contains energy that can be channeled toward positive outcomes. Anger can become determination to create change. Fear can become careful preparation and heightened attention. Sadness can become compassion and deeper appreciation for what matters. Frustration can become motivation to find better solutions. This transformation doesn't happen automatically. It requires what I call conscious emotional processing. When you feel a strong emotion, instead of immediately reacting or trying to suppress it, you pause and ask yourself several questions. What is this emotion trying to tell me? What information does it contain? What action would honor this emotion while serving my highest good? How can I channel this energy constructively? The fifth principle is emotional regulation under pressure. It's relatively easy to maintain emotional balance when life is going well, but real mastery is demonstrated when you're facing difficult circumstances. This requires developing cognitive override, the ability to choose more skillful reactions instead of automatic emotional responses. Advanced practitioners train their emotional regulation skills progressively, starting with small irritations and building up to major challenges. They practice maintaining their center during difficult conversations, unexpected setbacks, and high-pressure situations. This training builds what I call emotional fitness, the capacity to remain clear and responsive even when emotions are running high. The sixth principle is emotional contagion awareness. Emotions are highly contagious. When you're around anxious people, you tend to become anxious. When you're with excited people, you tend to become excited. When you're near angry people, you tend to become defensive or aggressive. Most people are unconscious of this emotional contagion and get swept along by whatever emotional currents surround them. Emotional mastery involves developing emotional sovereignty, the ability to maintain your own emotional state regardless of what others are feeling. This doesn't mean being cold or disconnected. It means being able to empathize with others' emotions without being controlled by them. You can be present with someone's pain without drowning in it. You can witness someone's anger without becoming reactive yourself. The seventh principle is emotional integration, which involves learning from your emotional experiences rather than just enduring them. Every strong emotion you experience contains lessons about your values, your needs, your boundaries, and your growth edges. When you approach emotions with curiosity rather than resistance, they become teachers rather than obstacles. This requires developing emotional intelligence in action. After experiencing strong emotions, you reflect on what triggered them, what they revealed about you, and how you can respond more skillfully in the future. You treat your emotional life as a laboratory for developing wisdom and compassion rather than just something to survive. The practical application involves daily practices that strengthen your emotional intelligence and regulation skills. This includes regular emotional check-ins, where you notice and name what you're feeling. It involves practicing the pause between feeling and action. It includes working with challenging emotions through conscious processing rather than avoidance or reactivity. When you develop true emotional mastery, you become what I call an emotional alchemist. You can transform any feeling into fuel for positive action. You can remain centered in chaos, compassionate in conflict, and clear in confusion. Your emotions become allies in your growth rather than obstacles to your success. Chapter 12: Conscious Relationships and How Inner Peace Transforms Connection. Your relationships are the ultimate test of your inner development. You can meditate for hours, practice appreciation religiously, and maintain perfect composure when you're alone. But the moment you interact with other people, especially those closest to you, your real level of consciousness is revealed. This is why conscious relationship skills are essential for anyone serious about developing inner stillness and living from positive psychology principles. Most relationship problems aren't actually relationship problems, they're consciousness problems. When two unconscious people interact, they trigger each other's unresolved issues, defensive patterns, and reactive behaviors. They project their internal chaos onto each other and wonder why their connections are difficult and draining. But when even one person in a relationship develops genuine inner stability, the entire dynamic can transform. The foundation of conscious relationships is what I call presence-based connection. Instead of trying to get something from others, impress them, fix them, or control them, you focus on being fully present with them. This quality of presence is rare in our distracted world, and when people encounter it, they feel seen, heard, and valued in a way that transforms the entire interaction. Presence-based connection requires several key elements. First is attention management. When you're with someone, you give them your complete attention. You're not thinking about your next response, checking your phone, or planning what you'll do later. You're completely absorbed in the experience of being with them. This kind of attention is so rare that it feels like a gift to whoever receives it. Second is emotional attunement. You tune into the other person's emotional state and match your energy to what the situation requires. If they're excited, you share in their enthusiasm. If they're grieving, you create space for their sadness. If they're anxious, you offer calm stability. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally reactive yourself. It means being emotionally responsive in ways that serve connection and understanding. Third is curiosity over judgment. Instead of immediately evaluating what people say or do, you approach them with genuine curiosity about their experience, their perspective, and their inner world. You ask questions designed to understand rather than questions designed to prove your point. You listen to learn rather than listening to respond. The second pillar of conscious relationships is conscious communication. Most people communicate unconsciously, saying whatever comes to mind without considering the impact of their words. Conscious communication involves several advanced skills. First is speaking from choice rather than reaction. Before you speak, especially about sensitive topics, you pause and consider what you're trying to achieve. Are you speaking to express yourself, to understand the other person, to solve a problem, or to create connection? This clarity of intention shapes how you communicate. Second is using language that creates safety rather than threat. You speak about your own experience rather than making statements about the other person's character. Instead of, "You never listen to me," you say, "I feel unheard when we have these conversations." Instead of, "You're being defensive," you say, "I notice some tension between us, and I'd like to understand what's happening." Third is timing and emotional intelligence. You recognize when someone is too activated to have a productive conversation and wait for a better moment. You pay attention to nonverbal cues and adjust your approach accordingly. The third pillar is boundary intelligence. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're guidelines that help relationships flourish. They define what you will and won't accept, what you need to feel safe and respected, and how you want to be treated. Clear boundaries actually create more intimacy, not less, because they allow people to relax and be themselves. Most people struggle with boundaries because they confuse boundaries with barriers. A barrier is rigid and defensive. I won't discuss this topic ever. A boundary is flexible and protective. I'm not available to discuss this topic when either of us is upset, but I'm happy to talk about it when we can both approach it calmly. Setting conscious boundaries requires clarity about your own needs, values, and limits. You can't set appropriate boundaries if you don't know what you need. It also requires the ability to communicate these boundaries clearly and kindly, without over-explaining or apologizing for having them, and the willingness to maintain your boundaries even when others don't like them. The fourth pillar is conflict transformation. Most people either avoid conflict entirely or engage in it destructively. Conscious practitioners see conflict as information about mismatched needs, different values, or communication breakdowns. They approach conflict with curiosity rather than defensiveness, seeking to understand rather than to win. Conflict transformation involves the ability to stay centered when others are activated. You don't take their emotional reactivity personally, and you don't get pulled into reactive patterns yourself. It also involves the skill of finding the underlying needs beneath people's positions. When someone is angry about something specific, you look for the deeper need that isn't being met, and it requires creative problem solving that honors everyone's core needs. Instead of compromising where everyone loses something, you seek solutions where everyone's most important needs are met. The fifth pillar is conscious appreciation in relationships. Most people take their relationships for granted and focus primarily on what's not working. Conscious practitioners regularly acknowledge what they appreciate about others and express genuine gratitude for the value others bring to their lives. This isn't about false positivity or ignoring problems. It's about maintaining a balanced perspective that recognizes both the challenges and the gifts in every relationship. When people feel genuinely appreciated, they're more willing to work through difficulties and more motivated to bring their best selves to the connection. The transformation that occurs when you bring these principles to your relationships is remarkable. People feel safer around you because you're not trying to control or fix them. Conversations become deeper because you create space for authentic sharing. Conflicts become opportunities for greater understanding rather than battles to be won. Your presence becomes a gift that others seek out rather than something they tolerate. Most importantly, your relationships become laboratories for your own growth. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice presence, compassion, and consciousness. The challenges you face with others become mirrors that show you areas where you need to develop greater wisdom and emotional maturity. Chapter 13, Peak Performance Protocols for Any Field. The difference between good performers and great performers isn't talent, intelligence, or even hard work. It's the quality of their mental training. Elite athletes, successful entrepreneurs, innovative artists, and exceptional leaders all share one common characteristic. They've developed advanced mental training protocols that optimize their psychological state for peak performance. These protocols go far beyond basic meditation or positive thinking. They involve sophisticated techniques for managing attention, regulating emotions, accessing optimal consciousness, and maintaining ideal mental conditions regardless of external pressures. When combined with the principles of inner stillness and positive psychology, these protocols become exponentially more powerful. The first advanced protocol is state management mastery. Your mental state determines the quality of your performance more than any other factor. When you're in an optimal state, you think clearly, make better decisions, access your creativity, and perform at your highest level. Most people leave their mental state to chance. They hope they'll feel motivated when it's time to perform, but they have no reliable way to create the state they need. Advanced performers develop specific protocols for accessing optimal states on demand, regardless of how they're feeling or what's happening around them. State management begins with state awareness. You learn to recognize the subtle differences between various mental and emotional states. You notice how you feel when you're in flow versus when you're struggling. You recognize the early warning signs of stress, fatigue, or overwhelm before they derail your performance. The second component is state anchoring. You develop specific rituals, breathing patterns, visualization techniques, or physical movements that reliably produce optimal states. These anchors work because they create neurological associations between specific actions and desired mental states. The more you practice these associations, the more reliable they become. For example, a basketball player might develop a specific breathing pattern combined with a visualization of successful shots that she uses before every free throw. A surgeon might have a particular way of centering himself before entering the operating room. A presenter might use certain phrases or physical movements to access confidence before taking the stage. The third component is state maintenance. Once you access an optimal state, you need strategies for maintaining it throughout your performance. This involves managing your attention, regulating your emotions, and staying connected to your deeper purpose even when facing challenges or setbacks. The second advanced protocol is attention architecture. Your ability to direct and sustain attention is the foundation of all peak performance. In our distracted world, the capacity for sustained, focused attention has become a competitive advantage in every field. Advanced attention training involves several dimensions. Attention span is your ability to maintain focus on a single task for extended periods. Most people can only sustain focused attention for 10 to 20 minutes before their mind wanders. Elite performers can maintain focus for hours when necessary. Attention flexibility is your ability to shift focus smoothly between different tasks or levels of awareness. This might involve zooming in on specific details when precision is required, then zooming out to see the bigger picture when strategic thinking is needed. Attention selectivity is your ability to filter out irrelevant information and distractions while maintaining focus on what matters most. In high-pressure situations, there's often a lot of competing information demanding your attention. Elite performers can maintain focus on their priorities despite external chaos. The third protocol is pressure optimization. Most people see pressure as something to avoid or endure, but elite performers learn to use pressure as fuel for enhanced performance. They understand that optimal performance often requires a certain amount of stress and challenge to activate their full capabilities. Pressure optimization involves finding your optimal arousal level for different types of tasks. Some activities require calm, relaxed focus, while others require high energy and intensity. Learning to calibrate your arousal level to match the demands of the situation is a key skill for consistent peak performance. This also involves reframing your relationship with pressure. Instead of seeing high-stakes situations as threats, you learn to see them as opportunities to demonstrate your capabilities. The fourth protocol is recovery and regeneration. Peak performance isn't just about what you do during performance. It's about how you recover between performances. Elite performers understand that recovery is as important as training, and they're as systematic about their rest as they are about their work. Advanced recovery protocols involve multiple dimensions. Physical recovery includes proper sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management. Mental recovery involves practices that restore your cognitive resources and emotional balance. The key is understanding that different types of performance demand different types of recovery. If you've been doing intense analytical work, you might need creative right brain activities to restore balance. If you've been dealing with high social demands, you might need solitude to recharge your energy. The fifth protocol is continuous calibration. Elite performers constantly monitor and adjust their training based on their current needs and performance levels. They track their energy, mood, focus, and performance to identify patterns and optimize their approach. This involves developing sophisticated self-awareness about what conditions support your best performance and what factors tend to undermine it. You might notice that you perform better at certain times of day, after certain types of preparation, or in certain environments. The sixth protocol is mental rehearsal and visualization. Your brain can't distinguish between vivid mental experiences and actual experiences, which means you can improve your performance through systematic mental practice. Elite performers use sophisticated visualization techniques to prepare for challenges, rehearse optimal performances, and build confidence. Effective mental rehearsal involves all your senses and emotions, not just visual imagery. You imagine how optimal performance feels in your body, what you'll see and hear, and the emotions you'll experience. The seventh protocol is purpose-driven performance. The most sustainable peak performance comes from connecting your efforts to something larger than yourself. When you're driven by purpose rather than just personal achievement, you have access to deeper sources of motivation and resilience. This involves regularly reconnecting with your deeper values and the meaning behind your performance. Why does this matter to you? Who benefits from your best efforts? How does your performance contribute to something you care about beyond yourself? When you integrate all these protocols into a systematic approach to mental training, your capacity for peak performance becomes remarkably consistent. You're no longer dependent on feeling motivated or having perfect conditions. You have reliable methods for accessing your best self, regardless of circumstances. Chapter 14. The Neuroscience of Lasting Transformation. Understanding how your brain changes is crucial for making lasting transformation rather than temporary improvement. Most people experience cycles of progress and regression because they don't understand the neurological principles that govern permanent change. They rely on willpower and motivation, which are finite resources, rather than leveraging the brain's natural capacity for rewiring itself. The first principle of lasting change is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new neural pathways and reorganize itself throughout your life. Every time you think a thought, feel an emotion, or take an action, you're literally rewiring your brain. The pathways you use most often become stronger and more automatic, while unused pathways weaken and eventually disappear. This means that every moment is an opportunity to either reinforce old patterns or create new ones. When you practice inner stillness techniques, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with calm, focus, and emotional regulation. When you practice appreciation, you're building stronger connections in areas of your brain associated with positive emotions and well-being. But here's the crucial insight. It takes approximately 60 to 70 days of consistent practice for a new behavior to become automatic, and it takes much longer for complex psychological changes to become permanent. Most people give up during the difficult middle phase when they're no longer seeing rapid progress, but haven't yet reached the point where the new behavior becomes effortless. The second principle is the importance of gradual progressive change rather than dramatic sudden shifts. Your brain resists rapid change because it perceives it as potentially dangerous. When you try to transform yourself overnight, your nervous system activates resistance mechanisms designed to maintain homeostasis. Successful transformation involves what I call graduated change, making small adjustments that gradually shift your set points without triggering resistance. This might mean starting with just 5 minutes of daily practice rather than trying to meditate for an hour. It might mean practicing appreciation for one thing each day rather than trying to completely change your mindset immediately. The key is consistency over intensity. Small daily actions compound over time to create profound transformation, while sporadic intense efforts usually lead to burnout and regression. Your brain adapts to whatever you do most consistently. So regular small practices are more powerful than occasional dramatic efforts. The third principle is the role of environmental design in supporting lasting change. Your environment constantly influences your behavior through subtle cues and triggers. If you're trying to develop inner stillness, but your environment is constantly stimulating and chaotic, you're working against yourself. Environmental design involves creating conditions that make positive behaviors easier and negative behaviors harder. This might mean designing your morning routine to support mental clarity practices, organizing your physical space to reduce stress and distractions, or surrounding yourself with people who support your growth rather than undermine it. Your brain is constantly scanning for cues about what behavior to engage in, And most of these processes happen below the level of conscious awareness. By designing your environment thoughtfully, you can influence these subconscious processes to support rather than sabotage your transformation. The fourth principle is the importance of identity-based change rather than behavior-based change. Most people try to change their behavior directly, but lasting change happens when you change your identity and then align your behavior with that new identity. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to meditate more," you say, "I'm someone who practices mental clarity daily." Instead of, "I'm working on being more positive," you say, "I'm someone who naturally looks for the good in every situation." This identity shift creates internal consistency pressure that makes the associated behaviors feel natural rather than forced. Identity change happens through what researchers call being, doing, having cycles. You start by being the type of person you want to become in small ways, then doing the things that person would do, which leads to having the results that person would have over time. This cycle reinforces the new identity until it becomes your natural way of being. The fifth principle is the role of social reinforcement in maintaining change. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, and our behavior is strongly influenced by social expectations and feedback. If the people around you don't support or understand your transformation, it becomes much harder to maintain new patterns. This is why finding communities of like-minded people is crucial for lasting change. When you're surrounded by others who value mental clarity, emotional intelligence, and positive psychology, these behaviors become socially reinforced rather than socially undermined. The sixth principle is integration across multiple life domains. Lasting transformation doesn't happen in isolation. If you develop mental clarity in your personal practice, but continue to engage in chaotic, unconscious patterns at work, the transformation will be incomplete and unstable. True integration involves applying the principles of inner stillness and positive psychology across all areas of your life: your relationships, your work, your health habits, your creative pursuits, and your contribution to others. This creates what I call systemic reinforcement, where every aspect of your life supports and strengthens every other aspect. The seventh principle is tracking progress and maintaining perspective. Transformation rarely happens in a linear fashion. You'll have periods of rapid progress followed by plateaus or even apparent regression. Without proper tracking and perspective, these natural fluctuations can derail your commitment to change. Effective tracking involves multiple metrics beyond just whether you completed your daily practices. You track your stress levels, the quality of your relationships, your ability to handle challenges, your overall life satisfaction, and other indicators of well-being. The eighth principle is the role of meaning and purpose in sustaining long-term change. Changes that are connected to your deeper values and sense of purpose are much more likely to persist than changes driven by external pressure or superficial desires. This requires regularly reconnecting with why you're pursuing this transformation. How does developing inner stillness serve not just you, but the people you care about? How does practicing positive psychology contribute to the kind of person you want to be and the kind of life you want to live? When change is rooted in purpose rather than just personal preference, you have access to deeper sources of motivation that sustain you through the inevitable challenges of transformation. The practical application of these principles involves creating what I call a transformation ecosystem, a comprehensive approach that addresses neuroscience, environment, identity, social support, integration, tracking, and purpose simultaneously. When all these elements work together, lasting change becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Chapter 15, Your Blueprint for Extraordinary Life. Transformation. You now possess something that most people will never have, a comprehensive understanding of how to develop genuine mental mastery and apply positive psychology principles for lasting life transformation. But knowledge without application is worthless, and even the most sophisticated techniques won't change your life unless you implement them consistently and systematically. The question isn't whether these principles work. The neuroscience is clear. The research is overwhelming, and millions of people have transformed their lives using these approaches. The only question is whether you'll join the small percentage of people who actually apply what they've learned rather than just collecting information. The quiet mind revolution isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming who you really are underneath all the mental noise, conditioning, and reactive patterns. It's about accessing the calm, clear, wise, and compassionate aspects of yourself that have always existed but have been buried under layers of stress, distraction, and unconscious programming. This transformation begins with a fundamental decision. Will you continue living at the mercy of your thoughts, emotions, and circumstances? Or will you take responsibility for your inner state, regardless of what's happening around you? Will you remain unconscious? Or will you become the conscious architect of your mental and emotional experience? The path forward requires what I call revolutionary commitment. Not the kind of commitment that depends on feeling motivated or having perfect conditions, but the kind of commitment that persists through resistance, setbacks, and the inevitable challenges that come with genuine growth. This is commitment to your highest potential, commitment to becoming the person you know you're capable of being. Your transformation blueprint begins with establishing non-negotiable daily practices. These aren't suggestions or things you'll do when you have time. They're core practices that you maintain regardless of circumstances because you understand they're essential for accessing your full potential. Your morning foundation practice should take 10 to 15 minutes and include 3 elements: connecting with your breath to center yourself, setting a clear intention for the day, and practicing appreciation for something meaningful in your life. This isn't about perfection. It's about consistently starting your day from a place of choice rather than reaction. Your daily grounding moments involve brief pauses throughout the day to reconnect with mental clarity and presence. Before important conversations, take 3 conscious breaths. Before making decisions, access your inner wisdom. Before reacting to stress, pause and choose your response. These micro practices accumulate to create dramatic shifts in your overall mental state. Your evening integration practice involves reviewing your day with compassion and curiosity. What went well? What did you learn? Where did you respond from your higher self? And where did you react from old patterns? How can you apply today's lessons to tomorrow's challenges? This reflection solidifies your growth and prepares your subconscious mind for continued development while you sleep. Beyond daily practices, you need weekly recalibration. Spend time each week in deeper reflection and planning. Review your progress, adjust your approach, and reconnect with your deeper purpose. This might involve longer meditation sessions, time in nature, creative pursuits, or meaningful conversations that support your growth. Your monthly evolution involves stepping back to see the bigger picture of your transformation. What patterns are you noticing? Where are you growing? What areas need more attention? How are your changes affecting your relationships, your work, and your overall life satisfaction? This macro perspective helps you maintain momentum and make necessary course corrections. The social dimension of your transformation is crucial. You need to either find or create a community of people who support your growth. This might be family members who understand your journey, friends who share similar values, online communities focused on consciousness development, or formal groups like meditation circles or personal development meetups. Remember that not everyone in your life will understand or support your transformation. Some people might feel threatened by your changes or pressure you to return to old patterns. This is normal and doesn't mean you should abandon your growth. It means you need to maintain clear boundaries while staying compassionate toward those who aren't ready for their own development. Your environmental design should support rather than sabotage your transformation. This includes your physical environment, which should be organized and peaceful rather than chaotic and stressful. It includes your information environment, being selective about what you consume rather than randomly exposing yourself to anxiety-inducing or distracting content. And it includes your social environment, spending more time with people who elevate your consciousness and less time with those who drain your energy. The integration phase involves applying your developing skills to real-world challenges and opportunities. This is where transformation moves beyond personal practice into authentic contribution. How can you use your growing emotional intelligence to improve your relationships? How can you apply your mental clarity skills to your work? How can you leverage your positive psychology practices to support others? The ultimate goal isn't to become perfect or to eliminate all challenges from your life. It's to develop the inner resources that allow you to navigate whatever life presents with wisdom, grace, and resilience. It's to become someone who remains centered in chaos, kind in conflict, and clear in confusion. This transformation creates what I call beneficial ripple effects. Your family benefits from your emotional stability and presence. Your work benefits from your mental clarity and focused attention. Your community benefits from your positive energy and conscious contributions. Your example gives others permission to pursue their own growth and development. The research shows that people who successfully develop these capacities report dramatic improvements in life. Satisfaction, relationship quality, career success, health outcomes, and overall well-being. But beyond these measurable benefits, they experience something much more profound, a sense of authenticity, purpose, and inner freedom that no external circumstances can threaten. Your transformation isn't just about improving your own life, though that's certainly important. It's about contributing to the evolution of human consciousness and the creation of a more peaceful, wise, and compassionate world. Every person who develops genuine mental mastery and emotional intelligence makes it easier for others to do the same. The time for transformation is now, not when you have more time, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel completely ready. The moment you decide to take your inner development seriously and commit to consistent practice is the moment your life begins to change. Every day you delay is another day of living below your potential and missing opportunities for growth and contribution. You have everything you need to begin this transformation immediately. You understand the principles, you know the practices, and you have access to the most sophisticated technology ever discovered for changing human consciousness, your own mind. The only question remaining is whether you'll use this knowledge or allow it to remain theoretical information that never transforms into practical wisdom. The quiet mind revolution starts with you in this moment, with the next choice you make about how to direct your attention and respond to your circumstances. Will you choose consciousness over unconsciousness, presence over distraction, wisdom over reactivity? Will you join the small percentage of people who actually transform their lives? Or will you remain part of the majority who simply hope things will somehow improve on their own? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Your extraordinary life is waiting on the other side of your commitment to becoming who you really are. Chapter 15. Additional conclusion. 500 words. As we close this journey together, I want you to understand something profound. The path you're about to walk isn't just about personal improvement. It's about radical transformation that touches everyone around you. Every moment of inner stillness you cultivate creates ripples that extend far beyond your individual experience. When you choose presence over distraction, you're modeling a different way of being for your children, your colleagues, your community. When you transform anxiety into focused action, you're demonstrating that emotional mastery is possible. When you maintain clarity during chaos, you become a beacon of hope for others struggling in their own storms. This isn't hyperbole. It's the documented reality of how human consciousness evolves. One person's awakening creates permission for others to awaken. Your commitment to this practice doesn't just change your life. It changes the collective field of possibility for everyone you encounter. Think about the people who inspired you to pick up this guide. Perhaps it was someone who remained calm when you were panicking. Maybe it was a friend who seemed to navigate life's challenges with unusual grace. Or possibly it was a mentor who demonstrated that mental clarity and emotional balance weren't just theoretical concepts, but lived realities. Now you have the opportunity to become that person for someone else. Your transformation won't be invisible. People will notice. They'll see how you handle stress differently. They'll observe how you're more present in conversations. They'll witness how you navigate conflicts with wisdom rather than reactivity. And some of them will ask you what's changed. That's when your practice becomes contribution. That's when your personal development transforms into collective evolution. You won't need to preach or convince anyone. Your lived experience will speak louder than any words. But let me be honest with you about what lies ahead. This path isn't always comfortable. There will be mornings when you don't want to practice. There will be moments when old patterns feel easier than conscious choice. There will be days when you question whether any of this matters. In those moments, remember why you started. Remember the cost of living unconsciously, the relationships strained by reactivity, the opportunities missed through scattered attention, the years lost to anxiety and overwhelm. Remember that every person who has developed genuine mastery faced the same doubts, the same resistance, the same temptation to give up. The difference between those who transform and those who don't isn't talent or circumstances. It's the willingness to continue practicing even when it's hard. It's the commitment to show up for yourself day after day, regardless of how you feel. You've been given a complete blueprint. You understand the neuroscience. You know the practices. You've learned the advanced techniques. You have everything you need. What you do with this knowledge in the next 24 hours will determine the trajectory of your entire life. Will you treat this as interesting information to file away, or will you recognize it as the invitation to transformation that it truly is? The quiet mind revolution doesn't require perfection. It requires participation. It doesn't demand that you get everything right. It asks only that you begin, that you persist, and that you trust the process even when results aren't immediately visible. Your brain is already changing as you read these words. New neural pathways are forming. Old patterns are weakening. The question isn't whether transformation is possible. The question is whether you'll allow it to unfold. The tools are in your hands. The science supports you. The path is clear. What remains is your willingness to take the first step, and then the next, and then the next after that. Your quiet mind revolution doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins right now with this breath, with this choice, with this moment of deciding that you deserve the extraordinary life that awaits you. Welcome home to yourself.